Our next speaker is someone who really needs no introduction, Nandan Nilekani, who helped found Infosys and was its CEO from March 2002 till last year. Nandan's credited with inspiring the Thomas Friedman book, The World is Flat, and has also written his own bestseller, Imagining India. He's also appeared on my favorite show, The Jon Stewart Show, several times. He's the youngest member ever to be inducted into the board of the World Economic Forum and listed as one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. In 2009, Nandan left Infosys and was appointed chairperson of the Unique Identification Authority of India, literally tackling one of the world's most compelling and probably important computer science and societal problems, namely to give every Indian a unique identifier and an ID card. It's our pleasure to introduce Nandan Nilekani.
Thanks, Sean, and it's really a great pleasure and privilege to be here at the 5th anniversary of the Microsoft Research Lab in Bangalore, and I'm grateful to both Rick and Anandan for inviting me here. I think they're doing some tremendous work, and a lot of the things they're working on is very relevant to what we are doing at the UIDAI. Well, simply put up, the project we're doing at the Unique Identification Authority of India is to give a number to every Indian. That means giving more than 1 billion people a number. So it's a bit of a problem, but we hope we can crack it, and we hope to throw some grand challenges for the research community. Our basic goal is using some kind of a biometric signature to identify every Indian resident uniquely, and also make sure that the person there are no duplicates in the sense that a person does not have more than one number. There are broadly two drivers for doing a project of this magnitude. The first is that India, unlike many other countries, does not have any way to have an identity for a person as acknowledged by the state. I mean, we don't have a number like the US Social Security number or the National Insurance number in the UK and so forth. And there are a very large number of Indians who have no form of identity whatsoever. Because they don't have birth certificates, many of them have not gone to school, so they don't have school certificates. Many of them are homeless, so they don't have addresses. And because of the fact that they don't have any form of identity, they don't have any of these documents or these forms of proof of identity that I talked about, they are essentially not able to participate fully in all our public services and our social activities. And in some sense, we're creating a divide, because on the one hand, we have people who are the people in this audience who have various forms of identity. They have passports, they have driver's license, they have bank accounts, and they have credit cards, club memberships, and all that. But you have a vast number of people, a few 100 million, who don't have any form of identity. So it's very, very important if we want to create an inclusive society, if we want to create a society where everybody is able to participate, then every one of these people who don't have any form of acknowledged existence by the state are given that acknowledged existence, and that provides the conduit or the ramp with which they can access a wide variety of public services. So fundamentally, it's to bring them into the fold and give them some form of identity to make sure that they access public services, or in general are able to demand their rights or whatever it is that they're entitled to. The second big reason for doing this is that as India builds a bigger and bigger welfare state, most of our benefits are oriented towards individuals. In other words, we are giving more and more benefits to people who are poor, giving them rice or food or some kind of subsidized ration. We're giving guaranteed employment through a scheme called the NREGA. We are giving old age pensions. We're giving all kinds of services, either in cash or in kind, to a large number of people who are disadvantaged. And the challenge then becomes, how do we make sure that these benefits are going to the right people? In other words, you have two kinds of problems. One is, are the right people getting the benefit, and secondly, are there many people out there who should be getting the benefit but are not getting the benefit because there's no way for them to identify themselves? So essentially, we have two different aspects to this problem. The one is inclusion and making sure that people are included in our society and by having a way of identifying themselves. And the second is, how do we make sure that our public spending on different kinds of public services is more efficient and really delivers the benefit to the people who need the benefit. So these are the two broad drivers of what we are doing. Now, what we intend to do is essentially give a number to everyone. The number will essentially be supported with a biometric package. We recently published our biometric standards, so we intend to capture all the 10 fingerprints. We intend to capture your iris as well as a picture of the person. So that will be done, and we'll do that for 1 billion people. And we will then, apart from this biometric information, the demographic or biographic information we have is going to be very, very simple. It's just the name, the address, the date of birth, the sex, number, and so forth. And the way we intend to do this is by creating a central depository which is going to store these records, one for each person, and have a large number of channels, whom we call as registrars, who will enroll people into our system. In other words, when somebody comes to get a passport, if it does not have a number, and we call this number as a unique ID number, then the passport authority will enroll that person into our system. Or similarly, if somebody comes to get what in India is called as an income tax PAN card, then if the person does not have a UID number, then we will enroll them into our system. Or if somebody comes to get a ration card so that they're entitled to subsidized rice or wheat, then they in turn will be enrolled into the system. Or if somebody comes to open a bank account, they will get enrolled. And therefore, we will have a large number of these registrars running into maybe a couple of hundred, each of whom is acting as, in some sense, a recruitment channel or onboarding channel for getting people enrolled into the UID. And therefore, by leveraging this large number of registrars who have literally thousands of touch points where people come in for some kind of a public service, we hope that we'll be able to expedite this whole enrollment thing. Otherwise, we won't be able to do this in the scale that we want to do it. And therefore, we have this central database which we will manage, which will have the actual storage of all these people's data, but all these registrars will actually feed in the enrollment data. Now, a very important part of this challenge we have is to make sure that we don't have any duplicates, in the sense that a person must have one and only one number, which is why this whole thing is called the Unique ID project. And the question then comes, how do we make sure that a person does not have more than one number? Because very often what happens in many of our public distribution systems is there are a large number of duplicates where people take multiple beneficiary cards so that they can claim some of the benefits, or you have a large number of ghosts, people who don't exist who are claiming benefits and so forth. So what we propose to do, and this again is one of the grand challenges which I hope all of you will solve, is we want to make sure when anyone comes for enrollment, we will actually do a deduplication check to see whether that person exists with some other name. Now, to give you a sense of the scale of this problem, let's say that our central database, this tank of names that we have, has about, say, 400 million names, say, 3-4 years from now. Now, that evening, from all our various registrars across the country, let's assume we get 1 million new requests to enroll into the UID. In other words, we get 1 million new people who turn up at various locations of our registrars and say that we don't have a UID number, please enroll us. Now, while the data collection from these million people is a distributed thing through the registrar's touch points, all this data is sent to a centralized location. So the deduplication is done in a central manner because you need to run it against one database. And therefore, these million records will then be compared against all the 400 million that we have using the biometric signature, and we will check if any of them is a duplicate. That means every evening, each of those million records has to be compared against 400 million and rejected if it's a duplicate, before the next million land up. And therefore, this is a massive issue of parallelizing the problem and many other ways of searching and sorting and so on and so forth. So I think this is something which is going to be a very, very big challenge for us. The largest biometric database in the world may be 120 to 150 million. We're talking about a 1.2 billion record database, so it's 10 times anything else that has been done before. And we have to have enough throughput to be able to process 1 million or more requests every night, even as we get another 1 million or more requests the following night. And therefore, there are massive technological challenges there. But our goal in all this, at the end of this, is to create a database where there's more than 1 billion records, one for each person, no duplicates, everybody has a unique number. Now, then the question comes, what do you do with all this stuff? And that's, I think, where really we are coming to something which we think is fundamentally transformational. We intend to provide online authentication of identity. What that means is that a person who comes in for to do something, a public service or to operate his account, can come to any point where you have an authentication device and he gives his name, he gives his number, and he gives one of his finger or fingerprints, and we will then do an online request to our database and confirm that the person is the same. In other words, if somebody comes in saying, I'm Mr. X, my number is 123, this is my thumbprint, then that packet will be sent to our online database. We will check whether, in fact, Mr. X number 123 does have a fingerprint that matches the person who has come in, and we hope to reply in a very short time, in a matter of seconds, back confirming that he indeed is Mr. X. In other words, we are providing an online identity verification system. All that we are doing in this system is confirming that X is indeed X. In other words, because we want to balance this privacy versus purpose kind of thing, nobody can read this database. You can't say, go get me this person's address or get me this person's date of birth. All you can do is say that here is this person standing in front of me. His name is X. His number is 123. This is his fingerprint. Please confirm to us that in your database he indeed is Mr. X. So that's all we do. We give a yes or a no whether he is Mr. X or not. And this is a very simple thing, providing this online authentication. But this online authentication then provides a platform which allows us to essentially re-engineer the way we deliver public services. For example, one of the challenges in India today is that financial services is really limited to 40% of the population. There's a large number of people. We have 600,000 villages where there's no banking services, there are no financial services, and therefore most of these people are depending on informal channels, money lenders and so forth to get any kinds of loans and so forth. Now with our proposal, we can actually have in a village maybe one or two what we call as what the Reserve Bank of India, which is our central regulator, calls as a business correspondent who has this device which has this authentication capability. So if somebody has, say, received some kind of a cash benefit into his bank account, he can get some kind of a text message or a voice message saying that he's got his money. He can walk to this business correspondent in his village. He can put his thumb on the device, authenticate himself, and withdraw his money. In other words, we have converted that business correspondent in the village into a low-cost ATM from where he can withdraw his money. So therefore, authentication can be, that's one example of how authentication can be used. Another example of how authentication can be used is if you have, India has a program called Janani Suraksha Yojana, which is a program, it's sort of a conditional cash transfer to encourage women to come and have institutional delivery. That means I was encourage them to come to hospitals or primary healthcare centers to do the delivery, because one of the large reasons for infant mortality and maternal mortality is deliveries happen in very difficult and unhygienic circumstances. And so this program is to motivate and encourage women to come in to have the deliveries in a hospital or in a healthcare center. And as of now, something like 10 million women a year are availing of this scheme. Now, what we propose again is that if this lady comes into a primary healthcare center, we'll have a device, she puts a thumb, we authenticate her. On the cloud somewhere, there is a record of her previous visits for medical checkups or anything special to be done, and then we can record that she had that particular checkup, and then you can also directly credit to her bank account whatever is the cash transfer that was planned, and then she can go back to her village, go to a BC and withdraw her money. In other words, we are talking about combining authentication, a cloud, as well as financial transactions to really change the way that we deliver public services to the poor, which I think is a very fundamental use of what we are trying to do. In turn, this authentication system is something which we hope will be very low cost. All that will require is a mobile phone and a fingerprint reader, and wherever the mobile phone network works, they should work, because it's just a simple call to a server and back. And tomorrow, as the progress happens in mobile phones, we hope to see mobile phones where the fingerprint reader is on the phone. So one device will be more than enough to do authentication that we need. And once you have this ability to authenticate an individual on his cell phone using his fingerprint, and that's strong enough for many applications, then that in turn creates the window through which you can open up many applications, whether it's P2P transactions, e-commerce applications, whatever it is that you want, all of which can be done on the basis of identity authentication. So this is the model that we are proposing. This is a very, very, very big and very complex project. As I said, nowhere in the world has such a large number of people been given biometric identity. Nowhere have we created a database where we do a deduplication on the scale that we're trying to do. Nowhere in the world is online authentication of identity being done the way that we are planning. So there are a lot of big unknowns in this project. It's very, very complex. It has a lot of technological challenges. It has a lot of research challenges. But there are many other challenges that go beyond technology, because technology is one part of the problem. One challenge is enrollment. How do we create the strategy, the logistics, and the rollout to make sure that 1 billion people land up in the next few years at some point where they provide their details? That's a huge challenge. How do we verify and authenticate the identity of a person who has no documentation, who has no birth certificate, who has no degree certificate, who has no house? How do you make sure that he, in fact, is the person that you want to have? How do you make sure that you can do online authentication within a few seconds anywhere in the country using the mobile network? How do you manage this large database, all the issues of managing the cloud, cyber security, and all the other challenges that we have? So there's all these challenges. And then there's the challenge of adoption. How do we make sure that public service delivery is re-architected to use these UIDs to change the very way you deliver services, whether it could be health services, education services, it could be, public distribution of subsidized food, subsidized energy, whatever it is that we have to do. How do we use this to basically transform the way we deliver financial services? So there's a whole issue of how do we change that. And then there's also the whole challenge of how do we roll this out in a country where you have still a high level of illiteracy, where you still have the majority of the population living in these 600,000 villages which are not well connected. Many of them don't have the infrastructure. And as I said, the populations don't have the education to read your messages or whatever. So the point is that this is a very, very complex real-world problem that we have. We also have the challenge that this is a massive change. It's a fundamental change from the way we have delivered things on the ground. And therefore, when you bring in this kind of change into a society, then obviously there are going to be a lot of challenges of acceptance, rejection, people not wanting it to happen, and so on and so forth. So we have the whole big issue of how do we create the change management to actually make this succeed on the ground. So this has many, many dimensions of complexity assigned to it, but we have taken it on as a challenge because we think that if you're really going to bring the change we want, if you really want to address the challenge of poverty, if you really want to address the challenge of inclusion, if you really want to take technology to the people and give them a value, that you have to do it with these kind of things. And so that's our driver to do this. The UID authority itself has been set up just 6 months back, and I took charge of that sometime in June of last year, and we have started working on it. We are headquartered in Delhi. We have our technology group in Bangalore, so they're right here. We have 8 regional offices. We have come out with our first draft strategy on how we intend to do this. All this is on our website, www.uidai.gov.in. We have also come out with the biometric standard. That's also on our website. We have come out with our data verification standard. That's also on our website. We will be launching an RFP to develop the application itself with the broad architecture. That should be on our website next week. We hope to start doing a proof of concept of our various ideas in 2 or 3 different states in the country in the coming months. The commitment that we have made to the government is that we will have the first set of UIDs rolled out sometime between August of this year, that is August of 2010, and February of 2011. So we're going to start rolling out. No, right now it's still vaporware, so hold the clapping. It's only PowerPoint presentations using Microsoft products. But we hope by August 2010 to February of 2011 to start rolling out these numbers, and our goal is to have a coverage of 600 million people in the next 5 years. In other words, we want 600 million residents of India to have this number, and that's the plan that we have. So this is, as I said, it is a game-changing project. It is one of those grand challenge kind of projects, and we have got a very positive response, and there are many, many ways that all of you can engage with the UID. We certainly hope that Microsoft Research will work on some of the grand challenges we have, because many of the things that they're working on, things like multilingual requirements, emerging market needs, mobility, enterprise clouds, all that is very, very valid to what we're doing. We actually have to solve those problems if our project is going to be successful. So clearly, there are a lot of research challenges that we hope to throw up, which I hope many of you will work on. We also have a number of methods. We're creating academic councils for academicians and researchers to be formally associated with the UID. We are creating a volunteer program which is on our website where people can volunteer for this program. We are creating a sabbatical program where if any of you want to come and work for 2 years on transforming the country, you can come and be on sabbatical with us. We have an internship program. We're going to have all that because we really want this to be a very open, collaborative model. We want all the crowdsource this whole thing so that everybody contributes ideas and intellectual capital to this project, because there's no way we can do this on our own. So I do hope that all of you will participate. Once again, I'd like to thank Rick and Anandan for this wonderful opportunity to address all of you with such eminent people from all over the world. Thank you very much.